The Supreme Court inadvertently and briefly uploaded a document to the court's website hours after handing down its rulings for the day. Here's what we know right now as we bring team coverage for you. Our CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford covers the Supreme Court and is covering this for us from Washington. We also, as you see on your screens, are joined by CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson, who is in Los Angeles. Jan, let's begin with what you know according to what the court is officially saying and according to reports that emerged just a short time ago.
Well, the court is acknowledging that a document was inadvertently and briefly posted on its website, just as you said. The document that the court is referring to is what appears to be a majority opinion in one of the most significant cases of the term involving abortion out of the state of Idaho and whether Idaho's strict abortion ban, which allows abortion only to protect the life of the mother and in cases of rape or incest, whether that has to be expanded somewhat in light of this federal law so that doctors there can perform abortions in rare circumstances where the woman's health is also at serious risk, right? So that's the question. We've been closely watching this case, one of the major cases of the term, the first case since the court overturned Roe versus Wade to look at a state law criminalizing abortion. So, I mean, the stakes were so high. The days are so few from when the court's going to finish up for the term. And then, of course, as Bloomberg has reported, apparently no one else on the planet saw it but Bloomberg, someone or somehow it got inadvertently posted on the court's website. Now, why is this decision important if it stays? And I don't think we have any reason to think it's going to change, because according to what Bloomberg has seen, there are multiple opinions written in this case from justices who are in dissent. The three most conservative justices are in dissent in this case, or appear to be. You have Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson saying that she thought the court should go ahead and just decide this now. You have Justice Elena Kagan saying that this is a great day for pregnant women in Idaho. So all of these writings that Bloomberg has seen make me believe that this opinion is unlikely to change. So what does that mean? That means that if this is, in fact, the opinion in this major abortion case, the Supreme Court will say, whenever they release it publicly, if it doesn't change, the Supreme Court will say, we're not deciding the overarching issue right now. We got involved in this case way too soon. There's 6 justices who agree to that. Conservative and liberal justices agree to that. What does that mean? That means it will go back to the lower courts. And as this case unfolds, there'll be more hearings as they kind of work through the issues and the cases involving these two different laws and how they intersect. The lower court has put an injunction, a preliminary injunction in place that will basically block that part of Idaho's abortion law that was not allowing, the Biden administration argues, that was not allowing abortions in those cases where a woman's health was at serious risk. So it's reinstating this injunction that had blocked that part of the Idaho law. That is a win for the Biden administration for now. And this case then would proceed in the lower courts and potentially will be back up to the Supreme Court in another year or so. And why I keep saying if, Errol, is because this could change, right? Like the court is saying there's been a document released, the opinion will be released in due course. So, you know, anything can happen. But based on what Bloomberg has gotten a hold of and how these writings are, you know, they've got all these different writings from different justices, I think it would be surprising if it changed.
A significant development, Jan, and it does remind me of reports we saw leading up to the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, where there was a hint and an indication that that may happen. You seem like that just
Errol, that is such a good point. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I mean, that's such a good point. Of course, 2 years ago, we actually had a leaked decision in the case that eventually overturned Roe versus Wade. That was shocking. Someone actually deliberately leaked that to the media. That had never happened before. This is not that. This is an IT snafu, it sounds like, based on the way this has all kind of gotten to Bloomberg, the way Bloomberg itself has actually described how they got a hold of it. Okay, now we've got some IT snafu. But why is that question also important? And the way I'm so glad you brought it up is because we had that leak in that case that overturned Roe versus Wade. And then we had to wait a couple months for that decision. And it didn't change. I mean, it changed a little bit, but the draft decision that got leaked really didn't change a whole lot from the actual official decision that we eventually got in that case. So, you know, I will be surprised. It does appear to me that this is the decision, and I will be surprised if it's something different when they release it.
And still a stunning development considering the very specific procedure that the Supreme Court follows when rolling out these highly significant decisions. I want to bring in our Jessica Levinson because as we sort through, Jessica, if and when this decision comes down, was this an IT issue? I'm wondering if you're surprised at all from the way the justices appear to be leaning in this Idaho abortion ban decision in which they would permit it for medical emergencies. Does it surprise to you that, if the Bloomberg reporting is correct, the justices are ruling 6-3 to allow abortions in a very limited way?
So I'm really lucky because I get to say I'm not that surprised, in part because one of the highlights of my professional career is I get to talk to Jan Crawford about these cases after they're argued. And one of the things that we noted is that during oral arguments, a number of the justices, and I think it started with Justice Barrett, said some version of, why are we here? If you're saying there's no conflict, why are we here? And that's kind of the magic language for maybe we should send this back. We should dismiss it, send it back to the lower courts, exactly as Jan described. Let them develop a record, let them sort out a number of different issues, and then maybe it does come back in a year or a year and a half. And after Justice Barrett said that, you saw Justice Kavanaugh picking up on that, saying the same thing to the lawyer representing Idaho. If what you're saying is true, where's the conflict? Why did you come to us so soon? And if this document holds, then that is essentially what the court is saying is, why are we here? Go back to the lower courts. And if you need to come back to us, you can.
And help us understand the bigger picture and how the Supreme Court is deciding these issues as it relates to abortion, because this follows the Supreme Court ruling in favor of allowing access to mifepristone. Folks will know that as the abortion pill in states where abortion remains legal anyway. What does that and possibly this tell us about the way the court is ruling on what is a major issue for so many people?
I love this question because it tells us something and nothing, I would argue, at the same time. With respect to the two big quote unquote abortion cases this term, I think what we're going to see is that there's no decision on the merits in either one of them. So, Errol, you and I talked about the mifepristone case. What the court said in that case is that there was no standing. The people who tried to walk into the federal court and say, there's a problem here, they weren't the right plaintiffs. They didn't have enough of an injury to say that what the FDA did in making it easier to obtain mifepristone, that actually injured that group enough to be able to bring the case. So that was a ruling on jurisdictional issues. It didn't get to the merits of what the FDA did with respect to making it easier to obtain mifepristone. And then what we see here, again, if this leaked document stands, is something very similar. The court not getting to the merits, but saying, you know what, we don't belong here. Go back and sort this out in the lower court. So in both cases, we don't have the Supreme Court weighing in on the big substantive issues.
And just so viewers are aware, we stand by for an official Supreme Court decision on this Idaho abortion case. But let me tell you, if something inadvertently gets posted on the Supreme Court's website, you want Jan Crawford and Jessica Levinson close by. My thanks to you both for bringing us the latest on this.